So let's get into other issues for conversation for tonight. Mr. Ibrahim Magu, the suspended acting chairman of the EFCC, was allowed to go home after 10 days. President Buhari approved the suspension of Mr. Magu as the acting chairman of the EFCC. Mr. Magu is being investigated over corruption allegations by a special presidential panel. There's been back and forth on this one since Mr. Magu was suspended and since this probe began. There's been a lot of talk about the Buhari anti-corruption war. Well, Professor H.S. Sage has been reported to have made some accusations, and this is what Professor H.S. Sage said about the Attorney General of the Federation. He said, and I quote him now, he said, "So I'm not surprised that he's sitting on files because I've seen things before. He has entered null prosecute for cases being prosecuted by EFCC without any rational explanations. I don't think Malami can be regarded as a reliable partner in the fight against corruption. He is at the very best lukewarm, if not hostile to it." End of quote. That is Professor Ishesage, the chairman of Presidential Committee Against Corruption. So Mr. Malami has also been speaking about the probe of Mr. Magu. And this is a quote from the statement from Mr. Magu's office. And Mr. Magu says, I quote, "All the successes recorded in that direction were a result of his commitment, especially and initiating and supporting justice sector reform, executive orders, anti-money laundering strategies, reparations and recovery of looted assets, among others. The current probe of the suspended acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Magu, is a practical demonstration of the commitment of the Attorney General of the Federation to the anti-graft war. It supports the fight against corruption in all its ramifications." So, how far is this anti-corruption war? Is this war still in progress? What has happened for those who have criticized that this corruption war is just a ruse? Tonight, we'll be dissecting the matter for you, and we'll have the special advisor to the president on anti-corruption, Mr. Aikomo, and also the legal counsel to Mr. Magu, Mr. Tosin Ojaomo. Both of them will be talking to us from our Abuja studio. And earlier today, Mr. Ojaomo is credited to have said that Mr. Malami is undermining President Buhari's anti-corruption war. Both gentlemen are joining us now from our Abuja studio. Let me begin with Mr. Ojaomo. Mr. Ojaomo, thank you so much. We're being reported today as saying that Mr. Malami is undermining President Buhari's anti-corruption war. In specific, what do you mean by that statement?
Yeah, what I meant by that statement is that when it comes to issue of anti-corruption, it has to be, the fight against corruption has to be holistic. And looking at the body language of the Attorney General of the Federation, it is obvious that he is not in support of this anti-corruption war. Because what the president said is that the fight against corruption must be total. The president said a war be declared. And if the AG is not doing things that show that we are waging a war against corruption, then there's a problem. So that's why I said he's undermining it. And based on my own personal experience with him, that's why I made that statement, that the action of the AG is undermining the anti-corruption war of the president.
Mr. Ojaomo, it's obvious that you are not comfortable in the manner in which Mr. Magu is being probed. Do you have any other convictions as to your allegations against Mr. Malami in this anti-corruption war?
Yes, like I said, this is, aside from Mr. Magu's issue, I'm now talking about going by what happened to the Special Presidential Investigation Panel. The president gave a directive that the panel be disbanded and that the cases being handled by the panel be handed over to the Attorney General of the Federation, not for him to keep the case file, but for him to complete the job of the panel. Now, over 1 year, all the case files have been in his office. No single person has been brought to court after he took over this case files. And if not for, in case of one of these suspects that was facing investigation at the panel, one Dr. Godinaji, If not for the proactiveness of the ICPC, the man would have gone back to take over all this property of over a billion, 1.5 billion property asset that was taken over that was seized from the man by the special panel. So if not for ICPC, the court has granted an interim forfeiture of those assets now, and the ICPC is about to get a final forfeiture of those assets. So these are very serious issues. And on the issue of Magu, let me just tell you something. Most of the allegations that the Attorney General is raising now are the same allegations that were raised before, and he himself cleared Mr. Magu of those allegations. He cleared him himself. So it is shocking that he is bringing those things again. He's bringing them up again. We don't know what has now. The same issues that was raised before, a presidential directive was given that the Attorney General should investigate the allegation, and he investigated it and gave a clean bill of to Magu, and he even recommended to the president that the president should resubmit the name of Ibrahim Magu to the Senate, which was done. So it's shocking that this same allegation is the same thing he's bringing now. But up till now, nothing has been brought against Magu that is substantial to say the man has done anything wrong.
No, we'll take it, Mr. Ojaomo, just for a moment. We'll take a break, but when we come back, we'll allow Mr. Aikomo to react to some of these issues that Mr. Tosin Ojaomo has raised as regarding the anti-corruption war, Mr. Magu's probe, and the way forward. That's next. The corruption war in Nigeria. We take a deeper look at the Magu probe and the anti-graft war. That's up next, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. In our Abuja studio is Mr. Tosin Ojaomo. He's a counsel to Mr. Magu, who has been suspended as the acting chairman of the EFCC. And, of course, Mr. Aikomo is a special advisor to the president on anti-corruption. Mr. Aikomo, I hope you'll be able to speak in some defense for Mr. Malami tonight. You heard what Mr. Ojaomo said about the Attorney General of the Federation. How would you react to what he said as against his integrity in the war against corruption? In his words, Mr. Malami is undermining Buhari's anti-corruption war.
Well, good evening, Sheung, and thanks for having me. My name is Aikomo, not Aikomo, just for the records. Now, I am surprised at the words used by Mr. Ojaomo. Mr. Ojaomo alleged that the Attorney General is undermining the anti-corruption war, especially because of his body language. When you say body language, it's a term that doesn't have any definition. Body language, because files were submitted to the Office of the Attorney General, and by your own assessment, the Attorney General has not acted the way you think he should. For the records, the panel, special investigative panel, headed by Mr. Bono Obla, was disbanded sometime in September 2019. I read the statement issued today. It was in the papers by Mr. Ojaomo. It referred specifically to the case of the Tumsa brothers. And I would like to use that case as my example to debunk the claim and the allegation of Mr. Ojaomo. Unknown to Mr. Ojaomo, or maybe he knows, the case filed against the Tumsas by the SPIP, they got an interim forfeiture order at the High Court of the FCT. The Tumsas appealed to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal set it aside. The Court of Appeal held that the SPIP lacks the power to even institute the suit in the first place. And the matter is currently on appeal. They have not gotten a date. So the initial order that was granted by the High Court of the FCT was discharged. We are talking about 500 files that the Attorney General, when the panel was disbanded, the President ordered that the Attorney General should take over all the activities of the panel. The panel is into investigation and prosecution. The Attorney General is not a policeman who does not investigate. He's leveraging existing institutions. Files have been sent to appropriate organs of the government to continue with the investigation. A number of the cases have been, they have been continued in the courts. So for someone to say the Attorney General's body language, I do not understand what body language means. For somebody who is championing the anti-corruption war, who has constitutional powers to institute prosecution, to take over, to discontinue, with powers that is so broad, what Mr. Ojaomo does not know. I work with the Attorney General, and I've been working with him in the last 4 years. There are so many things that you are not privy to. There are so many considerations that you may never know, and you will never know. Everything the Attorney General knows. The Attorney General has an helicopter or eagle view of the issues in the prosecution arena. It coordinates all the activities of the prosecution in Nigeria.
Mr. Aikomo, let me jump in quickly. Apologies to jump into your line of thought. And it's about some of the issues that you have raised. It was making reference also to the fact that when that case was thrown out, or that case was dismissed, that perhaps the Attorney General has not used his office to make sure that justice is being served to the very latter. But take a look at what Professor H.S. Sage has also said about the Attorney General. Just a moment, if I may throw this question in. He said, quote, "I'm not surprised that he's sitting," referring to the AGF, "that he's sitting on files because I have seen things before. He has entered null prosecute for cases being prosecuted by EFCC without any rational explanation. I do not think Malami can be regarded as a reliable partner in the fight against corruption. He's at the very best lukewarm, if not hostile to it." This is the chairman of the Presidential Committee Against Corruption.
I honestly will doubt that Professor Sage issued that statement.
That was an interview done. Sorry, Mr. I confirmed from Professor H.S. Sage, and he said that he gave that interview to the Punch newspaper, and it was in the papers today.
Okay. With due respect to the learned prof, I have a lot of respect for Professor Sage, but the constitutional powers to enter nolle prosequi given to the Attorney General does not owe anybody any explanation, not even the president. And the Supreme Court has ruled on this several times. So these powers is not something that somebody can second guess. That's what we are talking about. The Attorney General's power to enter nolle prosequi is born out of so many, and it's not a power that is at large. The Constitution has circumscribed how the power is to be used. And I can say confidently that that is how the Attorney General has exercised this power. So it may not be clear to somebody who does not sit in that office, who is not privy to all the facts that he knows about those cases. So to say that without any rational explanation is contrary to even the position of the Nigerian laws. The Supreme Court has ruled several times on how the power of nolle prosequi can be exercised and whether the Attorney General is to be questioned in respect of it.
So Mr. Aikomo, the big question now is for those who are criticizing the AGF, and because that is really not our line. Our line of conversation tonight is about Mr. Magu and how it relates to the anti-corruption war. But in 20 seconds, do you think for those who are in the close quarters of government who do think and are saying and are come to the public to say Mr. Magu is in the way of the fight against corruption, when you say the powers was given to the AGF by the Constitution, is all of these action by the Attorney General in line with the FG's anti-corruption war?
What action? Sure, I need to understand. What
so, for example, I quoted to you what Professor H.S. Sage said, that some of the actions are sitting on files by the AGF, according to the prof, is hostile to the anti-corruption war or lukewarm to it.
I've just explained. When you say sitting on files, Mr. Ojaomo spoke about the SPIP files, about 600 files, which a panel duly constituted was handling. And the president said, Attorney General, take it over. It's not something that he goes to court the next day. Why was the panel disbanded? Should the Attorney General continue the errors of the panel if there was any error? Shouldn't the Attorney General satisfy himself that the cases have merit, that there are prima facie cases against these persons? Like I said earlier, the Attorney General is not a policeman. He's not an investigator. So these cases were sent to appropriate government agencies. And as they were
Because I
bringing
said
their
earlier that
requests,
let's stay on the issue of Mr. Magu now for a moment. Mr. Aikomo, as the Attorney General's office or the presidential panel, have they officially raised any allegations against Mr. Magu officially in this present probe? And what is the allegation or the allegations?
well, it is in the public domain that there was a complaint against Mr. Magu. And in consequence of that, the president has set up a panel. And the panel is currently taking a look, a review of the whole thing. So it will be, wrong for me to start dissecting what, I'm not even a member of the panel. But what you and I know is that there was an allegation pursuant to which a panel has been set up. And the panel is doing its work. So I think we should not be too hasty. Let us wait as a people of Nigeria. Let us await the outcome of the panel. Let's not do anything in a haste.
Mr. Ojaomo, how do you react to that statement? Are you in a haste in this case against your client?
Yes, I just want to I want to react to what Mr. Abiodun Aikomo said. I want to react to it one by one. Syria team, in this sense. Number one, he talked about the TUMSA issue. I just want to say categorically that he was economical with the truth. The TUMSA brothers their appeal went to the matter that is on appeal at the Supreme Court is a civil matter. After the matter went on appeal, the panel now took them to the Federal Court on a criminal matter. After the matter was mentioned, after they were arraigned, the next thing that happened was for the AG to come to the court and said no, they are not interested in continuing with the matter. So based on that, Justice Eko discharged them. They were discharged. It's on record. So what he's saying, and that's why I have to respond to that issue. And secondly, on the issue of the files that was taken from the panel, these files are over a year. Not even one single suspect has been charged to court. They should give record. I'm a special prosecutor to that panel. If there's anything going on, I've been monitoring the activities of the AG since he took over the panel. No single suspect has been charged. All the files were taken over and he kept the file. Even as at now, we are even talking about what about the assets of there are funds that have been recovered by the panel. Where are those funds? Funds, assets. Most of these suspects they've taken those assets back and joined them in town. So these are issues that maybe because I was part and parcel of this panel. And okay, he's even saying that errors were made. But the files were taken over. He's talking about the powers of the AG, not only prosecutor of the AG. What Section 174 said is that the AG must exercise this power in public interest. What is public interest? He must exercise that power in the interest of the Nigerian people. What is the interest of the Nigerian people? There is the issue of corruption that is ravaging this country now. So if the AG is to take over a sensitive matter of that nature, which would have brought trillions of naira back to the treasury of the federal government, why would he not take it with utmost seriousness?
Mr. Ojaomo, we need to close now. We need to close now. He said that in the case of the allegation against Mr. Magu, we probably, or you are too hasty. We have 10 seconds for your reaction.
No, what happened to me, what is happening to me is just a temporary setback to the war, to the anti-corruption war. Because, looking at the surrounding circumstances, it is a temporary setback. But for me, we are in a because we are taking this anti-corruption war very seriously, and we cannot. No time to waste because of the Nigerian people so much believe that before President Buhari will leave power, he will solve this problem of anti-corruption.
All right, we need to close now, Mr. Ojaomo. Mr. Ojaomo, just remember, we need to close now. And Mr. Aikomo, I need to get your final statement just in 10 seconds, Mr. Ojaomo. Your final statement in 10 seconds, please.
Yes, so for me, what I would say is
No, Mr. Aikomo, rather. Mr. Aikomo's, sorry, Mr. Aikomo's final word, please. Mr. Aikomo's final word, because we need to close.
There's a cross complaint against him. So he has to be investigated. He admitted selling properties that was seized by the EFCC, which is against an act of parliament, section 31 and 32 of the EFCC Act.
Mr. Aikomo, your reaction in 10 seconds, please. Mr. Aikomo, please. We need to close.
Well, Sheon, thanks so much. I want to re-emphasize the commitment of President Buhari to the war against corruption and the commitment of Mr. Malami, the Attorney General. This is not about emotions. We are all Nigerians. Nobody is more Nigerian than the other. Nobody is more committed to the anti-corruption battle than the others. So time does not run out. Let's not. You are talking about time. Who determines? You are not the Attorney General, unfortunately.
All right.
And like I've said, you don't even have all the facts. So please,
we need to leave it at that, gentlemen, because we are obviously out of time. Thank you so much, Mr. Abiodun Aikomo, essay to the President on anti-corruption, and Mr. Tosin Ojaomo, counsel to Mr. Magu. That's how we leave it, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Shion Kimbale. Bye-bye.